This week's Heads and Tails is recorded with Grant Ferguson, who's director of Verbier International School. And it's a really lovely episode. We talk about the enthusiasm that's part of the DNA of a VIS student, what it's like to live in a mountain resort where 4,000 turns to 40,000 inhabitants through the winter, the benefits of being part of a schools group like Duke's, and his defense of the word holistic. We also cover being brave in headship and that sliding doors moment of making a big move abroad. It's a really lovely episode and we hope you enjoy. Welcome back to Heads and Tails with me, Henry Faber. I'm one of the co-founders here at Opperden, and it's a real privilege to be interviewing Grant Ferguson today. Grant, how are you?
Good, thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Grant is tuning in from the mountains. What a lovely place. We're mid the Europeans, football is in the air, it's summer, we're in another heatwave week here in England, and I'm really excited to be talking to Grant about his role as the director of the new Verbier International School, VIS, a Swiss mountain school, if you hadn't guessed, in one of the world's best known ski resorts. What a place to go to school. I'm excited to hear more. Grant has more than 22 years of extensive educational experience developed at some of the world's leading schools, from top performing independent schools in the north of England, all the way to the mountains via Dubai. And I think since 2018, Grant's been up in the mountains working across premium Swiss boarding schools with a real focus on the IB in particular and educational standards. I know that Grant has a BSc in Biosciences from the Uni of Exeter, a PGCE in Secondary Science from Lancaster, and then a Masters of Education and Educational Leadership from the University of Buckingham. So Grant, really excited to hear more about this school and your experiences to date in leadership. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks very much. Yeah, it's very hot here as well at the moment, and actually it's very exciting at the moment because of the Women's Euros here in Switzerland. In fact, I was lucky enough to go to a game yesterday evening with my daughters. It's a fantastic experience.
Excellent. I hope you're going to get a little bit of time off this summer, but we're going to chip into what's going on in your in-tray soon. I want to start by just taking you back a bit. If you kind of look through the span of what you've done in education and in leadership generally, is there perhaps an anecdote that gives us a little insight to your style of leadership? It says maybe a story that tells us a bit about what you're like.
Yeah, so I as you alluded to, I started in independent education in the north of England and as a biology teacher. But always been interested in the holistic nature of education. I was a rugby player in my youth and always was involved in rugby in schools, and I'm really interested in team dynamics and being part of a team with sport, but also in terms of travel and being a team away from school. And for me, learning opportunities aren't just what happens in the classroom, it's what happens on the pitch, here on the ski slope, or out on the mountains or in a different country. So really interested in holistic education. And coupled with that, I'm also interested in leadership styles that are authentic. As you said, I did my MEd in educational leadership in 2014, and it was a fantastic course, and it really got me interested in educational leadership and thinking about it. And the thing that really resonated with me was being authentic, and I've held that all the way through my career. I have to believe it to be able to talk about it and essentially sell it to people.
Mountain schooling is kind of an extraordinary thing. Like for those of us who've not been to a school in the mountains, it's hard to imagine. Perhaps you can give us a little flavour of what life's like in a Swiss mountain school.
Yeah, so the key point there is mountain, and because mountain schools are, I feel at home in them, based on what I've already said, because they are one place that you can be truly holistic. They're usually a little bit smaller than your normal school, around about 150 to 300 students. So they're small enough that everybody can be an individual, but large enough to have real school shape and systems and everything that comes with this, which really means you can personalize the education. And so therefore, the holistic nature of this really appeals to me because you can do all things for all people in a school that's that size. And being on the mountain, we get to leverage everything that comes with that. So fantastic opportunities, not just skiing in the winter, which really builds resilience. When you're a 12-year-old student that has to go out in a snowstorm and throw yourself as fast as you can down a race piste, that really does build resilience. But also in the summer when we get to go out and trek on the mountains and go up to maybe 4,000 meters and stay over in a mountain refuge, this holistic nature is truly fantastic and a great learning opportunity.
That's amazing. There must be challenges too. What are the things that are hardest about running a school in the mountains?
Um, the things that are hardest about running a school in the mountains is actually understanding that we are a real school, and we're not just a playground. And actually, that's for both the students and for the staff, and really instilling a culture of quality academics into the school as well. So that we're not just perceived by the outside world as a place that you go for fun for a short period of time. We're actually an educational organization where you can come and receive high quality IB results, which will allow you to transition to the next stage of your academic career.
I want to ask a little bit about IB, I guess, while we're on it. You've experienced different systems. You've been in the UK. You've now spent a lot of time in Europe. You're clearly a fan of the IB. How do you think the IB stacks up, and what feels different about a European education?
We're an international school. We're not following the Swiss system, and we're not following the UK system. So we have in our secondary school the IB International Baccalaureate Middle Years program, and then that follows through for the last 2 years of your education as a senior student with the IB diploma, the IB DP. We also here have a high school diploma offering, which we can wrap around lots of these different courses. So what's different about it? It's broader, especially at the top end. So you might do 4 A levels, and forgive me if I'm talking amiss talking about A levels. It's been a long time since I've experienced them now. However, in the IB you have 6 subjects plus a core, which consists of TOK. It consists of creativity, action, and service element, and also an extended essay, a bit like an EPQ. So the breadth is there. And the 6 subjects groups span across different areas of academia, from you have to take maths, you have to take humanities, you have to take 2 languages. And then obviously there are other groups in there which allow you to expand on that. So it's broad. And in order to do really well in that broad academic setting, it's difficult. It's difficult. So uh, where I'm going with this is the fact that it's different to the A levels in that it's not a narrow field, and it's much more akin to what you might find in the rest of Europe, where that breadth is kept.
Thank you. That's helpful. I want to steer that into a little bit about universities too. You're a product of the UK university system. It's been lauded around the world for a long, long time. But there's a sense in my office anyway that that's changing a little. And I'm interested into what you see in a very international dynamic where you are. Are families still really keen on that UK experience, or are they looking more broadly than that? And how are you opening up those opportunities for them?
I think the latter. I think that the UK is still held up. I mean, the education is probably the last great export of the UK. We all go out into the world and sometimes take our education systems with us. And sometimes that's the right thing. Sometimes it's not quite. It doesn't fit in certain contexts. However, in terms of Switzerland, the students that graduate here, if you'd have asked me 6 years ago, a third went to the UK, a third to the US, the other third went home because most of the students here aren't Swiss, they're boarding students from all over the world, or they stayed in Switzerland and went to a few of the universities around Europe. However, I see that trend changing in the last and definitely in the last 24 months, in the last 4 years, and definitely in the last 24 months. Less are going to the US for obvious reasons. The UK is still popular, but increasing in popularity is Europe and mainland Europe, and lots of the universities are tapping into the fact that most education, international education, happens in English. So lots of universities in mainland Europe are offering courses, and I'm seeing an increasing popularity of places like IE Madrid, which offers lots of courses in English, Bocconi. There are lots of the Swiss universities that now offer courses in English as well. So it's much more that students are wanting to stay in mainland Europe rather than traveling to the traditional markets of the UK and the US.
Thanks, Grant. That's so interesting to hear from you, because we feel that's reflected very similarly, but hearing it from the horse's mouth, as it were, in a school as international and as with broad focuses like yours is great. So I want to focus on your in tray. I always ask people this. You must have a million spinning plates and a lot going on this summer. But I know that you guys have been through a merger, and actually the school is growing and changing in size and all sorts. So perhaps you could tell us a little bit about what's most pressing in your in tray for the summer and the months ahead.
Yeah, the merger. So there were two schools in Verbier. So Verbier has about 4,000 people live here year round, and then swells to 40,000 people in the winter. So there were two international schools, and as of 3 weeks ago, we merged both of these schools together. So we are gone from Copperfield International School and Verbier International School, and we're going to start in August as Verbier International School, which has a merging of staff, it has a merging of students, and it has a merging of curricular offer. So in order to make that work, there's a lot to do this summer. And as I say, it was only announced 3 weeks ago. So the new VIS, the new Verbier International School, is part of Duke's education. So lots of support from them in the UK in order to make this work really well. However, as you can imagine, putting two schools together is taking a little bit of time. Fantastic fun. I'm really looking forward to getting my teeth into it, but it's the small things that are the issues. Different uniforms, different namings, different information management systems. So the devil's in the detail, and we need to make sure we get the detail completely correct before we try and spin this up in August.
How exciting. I know a question I get from parents a lot is, I suppose, a curiosity and an interest in what it means for a school to be part of a group. And it's such a big, growing international trend, not just with Dukes, but schools becoming part of groups and mergers and joining forces. And I'm sure there's a lot in there that strengthens it, but there are things that probably worry parents too when they come to see you as part of a prospective process. What are your reflections on this kind of change in the educational landscape around schools joining groups and becoming parts of teams?
Well, I've worked in this environment in two different groups now, and I see it as really positive. As you said, there are lots of synergies from being part of a group. There's economies of scale, but it's actually having in the background specialists to lean on. So in the past, if you were a director like myself at an international school out here in Switzerland, where there isn't a group to talk to, it's a very lonely place. Whereas now I have a governing body which consists of people that are situated locally, but also consists of educational specialists back in the UK. So our governing body has an MD, a managing director, a finance specialist, a compliance and safeguarding specialist. So I can really, really lean on the expertise that's back there. And actually, in Dukes, I found it fantastic because although I've got that to lean on in the background, in terms of the day-to-day and the operational running of the school, that's left completely to the director, who, in my case, I've got a little bit of experience of being out here in Switzerland. So they've allowed me to show that and then take the school in a direction which I think is the most appropriate.
Exciting. I mean, I can see it must be a lot of noise and a lot of stuff in your intro, but exciting things too. I always ask people on this podcast, I have been doing so for a long time now, to share an unpopular or a controversial opinion. If I were to stick you on Hyde Park Corner on a soapbox, what is it you're happy to get up behind and defend that you think some people might just take umbrage with or disagree with?
I had this disagreement with a parent recently, actually. And it's about, and I've already mentioned it a lot because I truly believe in this, it's about the word holistic. Because whenever I've heard that in the past, and it might just be me, but I don't think I'm isolated in this. People see that as an excuse for not being very academic, whereas actually I believe that the word holistic means holistic. It means that the school can be academic and have exciting opportunities outside of the classroom, and also have a fantastic culture. And I actually think the mountain schools really lend themselves to this because of the size of them and because of the environment. And interestingly, when I was talking about the merger with parents, one of them said, well, you can't be all things to all people. You just can't. You can't be academic and you can't have all these exciting opportunities as well. And I completely disagree with that. I'm happy to stand by that. And actually, I've got experience of it in the past where a school with a breadth of opportunities like we offer here at VIS has actually produced some of the best academic results I've ever seen. So I'm happy to stand behind that. And actually, the negative connotations which sometimes come with the word holistic, I think that you can work through those and it shouldn't be the case.
Thank you. Amongst all that breadth and variety of student, and in a very holistic way, what do you think is the sort of core DNA of a great VIS student?
Somebody that is enthusiastic. So I interview every single student that joins the school. And what I'm looking for is a student that wants to throw themselves in, get involved, do some new things, take themselves outside of their comfort zone, because we're going to do that. So they have to buy into that. And in doing that, I think they grow as an individual. And it means that essentially they make their best of the time here. So I think it's about culture, and it's about the right student. We are not the right school for every single student.
Very fair. I think that's a good, honest remark. Um, where next? I'm thinking here, maybe some advice. You've been a head, a principal, a director, all these leadership roles for a long time now. I'm sure you have supported and mentored yourself a lot of educators up through their progress. We have a demographic of a lot of educators who are, I'll just say, upwardly mobile and keen to progress and, support their careers. Perhaps there's a piece of advice you've got for those in the sector that you're happy to stand behind.
Yeah, and it might be a little bit controversial and not the same for everybody, but one of the things that I've found is be prepared to move in order to find the best opportunities. Be prepared to move around, be prepared to take a risk. If it doesn't work out, you can always move on again. And I understand that everybody has different circumstances, and that happens in different ways. An example, I was in the north of England in independent education, and it was time to move. And it was either move down to the south of England and potentially not quite find the right role, or in terms of the cost of living and so on was different. And my wife and I just sat one night, and I had a job offer in Dubai. She'd never been, and we said, "Should we go?" And she went, "Yep, let's go." And off we went. And we've never looked back. And 3 schools later, we're having a great time in Switzerland, and bringing our daughters up in a fantastic part of the world. So you can move. You don't have to be stuck in one place.
I love that, the bravery and adventurism of it. Like when you go back at the time, do you think, oh, there was a fork in the road there where actually the Middle East and Switzerland wouldn't have ever happened, and I would have been somewhere else?
Yeah, sliding doors. It's Gwyneth Paltrow, and actually that was probably that moment for us.
Yeah. What are your reflections on Dubai too? We haven't touched on that. I think such an interesting culture of innovation in education, and I'm sure you've still got a lot of friends working in the system there. What's your take on that as a place and a sector, I suppose?
Yeah, really, really interesting. I mean, when I was there, 2016 through 2018, it was growing. I think there was 200 schools. I think there's 250 schools out there now. We absolutely loved it. Really enjoyed it. What we do, the schools out there are very good. Some of the best teaching and some of the best innovation I've seen is out there, because it's a competitive market, so it has to be. And it's very much like the UK independent sector in terms of the sport and all the things that come with it. It's not what you think it is when you go on holiday. There's a really strong expat culture there, with really ambitious students and parents that help to drive that. And it is a place that we would consider going back to in the future. My wife and I often talk about it. However, it just wasn't the right job for me at the time. And so that, like I said, be prepared to move. If something is work for you, give it a chance. But if it isn't ultimately right, then be prepared to move on.
You've certainly experienced the extremes, from the 40, 50-degree heat of Dubai to the cold temperatures of a winter in Verbier. I guess at least now you get the variety of the summer and the winter there too.
Yeah. And actually here we have an education for all seasons. Every term is very different, and you have a very different experience. And that really lends itself to a fantastic time here in Verbier. However, when you say about it being cold, I'm from the north of England. I'm from near Manchester. I'm from Blackpool, on windy and wet. And actually, Verbier is not like that. It's a dry cold. So I think we're on about 320 days of sun here a year. So you don't really feel the cold. It's a fantastic place to have a school and to live.
I'd definitely take that kind of cold over the England cold. Doesn't have to be Blackpool, could be London, anywhere. Just that damp invades the bones, whereas that kind of dry cold, I think, is completely different. How exciting! So, challenges ahead. I'm interested to ask one more piece. As everyone's so aware, the VAT situation in the UK has had such an effect, across probably a lot of Duke schools and other schools, and parents here really questioning the value they get from the sector in this country. Do you see a ripple effect to Switzerland, and how do you kind of reflect upon the Swiss boarding sector as a kind of enclave versus what's going on in the UK, Dubai, other places? Like, where do you see that trajectory for Swiss schools in the coming years as a result of everything else that goes on around it?
Yeah, so pardon the pun, but being at 1,500 meters on the side of a mountain, we do live in a rarefied atmosphere. And actually, being here hasn't had much of an effect on us at the moment. That said, there might be a slight lag in that, and that might come to fruition in the future, because essentially we are now on some schools not too far away from their price point, whereas traditionally Swiss education is quite expensive because of everything that wages here and on costs and everything that goes with it. However, that gap has diminished, so it might seem that in the future we will probably be within the ballpark of some of the UK independent sector, and especially for boarding. Hasn't come through yet. However, it might do in the future.
Interesting. So this summer, planning for the merger, new children in September. What else is getting you really excited about 2026 and beyond?
So what I'm really excited about, and this is a very Verbier thing, is that we're going to put together two of the schools with the best ski teams in Switzerland. So therefore, I'm hopeful that we'll become a force to reckon with on the Swiss ski circuit this year. So both Copperfield and VIS did very, very well on the circuit last year in terms of the ski races, and now the synergy from putting those two together might see some real success from that team.
Doesn't surprise me at all. Wouldn't be a doubt to see you guys top of the list there. I'd be hopeful for that. Grant, thank you. We've covered a lot in a fairly short space of time. Lot to dig into on Europe, on Switzerland itself, on universities, even your trajectory through this, mentorship and leadership. I think we've covered a lot, and a lot of really interesting information on the school itself, which I'm sure is an undiscovered gem for some within this audience. So it's been a real pleasure. I'm very grateful for the time you've shared at a really busy point in the year, and we wish you well for everything that 2025-26 as a school year brings.
Thanks very much. Thanks very much for having me on the show.
It's a pleasure. Thanks, Grant.